All right. Hi, I'm Nicole,
Hi, I'm Abby.
I'm Annabelle.
I'm Brie.
and we're the Book Babes. We're a podcast. We are spoiler full. So if you would like no spoilers for our book, this month is Bunny. Uh, please pause and come back later. All right. Hello. Good morning. I
Morning.
feel I'm having flashbacks to like youth group when I had to lead Bible study. Like, good morning. We are gathered here today, and now a reading. Um, Okay, so this month's book was Bunny by Mona Awad. I think that's how you say her name. I'm not positive.
I think so.
Yeah. So the description is Heather Mackey couldn't be more of an outsider in her small, highly selective MFA program at New England's Warren University. A scholarship student who prefers the company of her dark imagination to that of most people, she is utterly repelled by the rest of her fiction writing cohort, a clique of unbearably twee rich girls who call each other Bunny and seem to move and speak as one. But everything changes when Samantha receives an invitation to her Bunny's fabled smut salon and finds herself inexplicably drawn to their front door, ditching her only friend Ava in the process. As Samantha plunges deeper and deeper into the Bunny's sinister yet saccharine world, beginning to take part in the ritualistic off-campus workshop where they conjure their monstrous creations, the edges of reality begin to blur. Soon her friendships with Ava and the bunnies will be brought to a deadly collision. So,
I was listening to the audiobook first and I didn't realize what smut salon actually like the name was. I thought it was a weird made up word that they made up, but it was literally smut salon.
yes.
Once I actually started reading the book like physically, and I was like, oh, it's not just a weird made up word. They literally met smut, which makes a lot of sense with what they do there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
they
so
literally just read smut basically.
yeah. But like strange poetic smut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Very
so
strange.
I thought that we could kind of go through part by part so that if anyone who is listening or participating hasn't read the book, if they still want to listen, then they can follow along. So for in the first part, if that works for you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. So when we first meet Samantha, she's like on the off, she's really on the outside of this program, and she is with her friend Ava, who's very individual, like a total individual, and she hates the bunnies so much. She's got kind of like a weird, she feels on the outs with her supervisor, what would you, advisor, I guess. And she's just not feeling very involved. They notice her at a party. They invite her to her smut, the first smut salon that she goes to, where they give her. I thought there was going to be more because she kept describing this like green drink that they gave her. I was like, she's
Yeah.
being drugged for sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then she gets drunk. They tell her to go find a bunny and she goes running after a bunny. Um, and then she basically, yeah, it's like it's just so strange and so surreal even in the beginning. So,
hmm
Yeah, and the bunnies are like this group of four girls that like all they do is tell each other they love each other and like call each other bunny, which is why they're called bunny. The
mhm,
Right.
bunnies or whatever is because they're just like, I love you, bunny. Hi,
yeah,
bunny. Like you're the
Which,
best, bunny.
I mean, like, out of context, that's not that weird. It's like, whatever, it's a group of friends hanging out and they have nicknames for each other. It just happens to be the same nickname.
I just think
But
like the fact that they were hugging like all the time and they would just sit there and hug was a little weird, but like the general like, oh, they have a nickname for each other and they're really close, like that's fine. It was
yeah,
just
wait,
all of the like hugging and stuff. They would literally just sit and hug the entire break.
yeah,
Like
but
I
like,
Yeah.
I mean,
said
okay,
that.
so choir kids, for example, we would have massage trains. Like, straight up, you just walk through campus and you'd see the choir kids having a massage train. And it
Yeah,
would be
see, as
like,
a non-choir kid, I would find that insanely weird.
right. But
If
as
I
a
saw
choir
that, I'd
kid,
be
it was
like,
totally
I'm not
normal.
gonna talk to them.
Yeah, no, it's like totally normal. Like I did that too. Like
Right? It's totally normal. But if you're not a choir kid, that would be super weird.
super
Yeah.
weird.
yeah.
What are
I
you
found a
doing?
lot of her descriptions about the bunnies. Like, obviously, they're very over the top and it's like over the top performative femininity. But a lot of it was like on the outside, like, yeah, this isn't bad. Honestly, they could be cool. I couldn't tell at first whether or not like she was the one with the
Yeah.
problem or it was them.
Mhm.
I
I
mean,
thought she was the one with the problem at the beginning. I
yeah,
hated
same,
her
straight up.
so much. Like I could not keep reading. It was
Well,
so
like, oh, let me see where I took notes as usual. As usual. Um, okay,
Listening to
I
it
said,
as an audiobook is definitely a different experience than as
oh, I'm
reading it
sure.
like
I
in
bet.
book form because like at the audiobook I didn't hate her that bad. And like
Yeah.
I was fine with her and like I liked the book in the beginning because I was listening to an audiobook and then I started reading it on my phone and I'm like, I don't like her.
That's
So I
interesting.
don't know why it's such a difference. Maybe it's like the inflection that you're reading it as in your brain versus like someone else telling you it. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, probably. So this is on page 15. It's like end of chapter 2. It's basically like my first impressions of Samantha. And I said, this bitch got into an elite Ivy League writing program on a full scholarship, and all she's doing is whining. Like, woe is me, I have to work for a living. Woe is me, I slept with a teacher. Woe is me, I'm grossly unapproachable, so people don't get me. She's got not like other girls' attitude and is so judgy, and I'm supposed to assume the bunnies are worse?
Yes,
yeah.
Like,
absolutely. Um, there's also a couple points where she makes this comment like it might be a little bit later, but they say something like, "Oh, we found so and so on your Facebook. Like we were looking through your Facebook or whatever, that kind of
yeah.
thing." And then she talks about like less than a chapter later, or she had talked about before, like following their Instagram and they're always posting this and that. It's like you're doing the exact same thing. So, you're not really that different from them. At least in the beginning, it was very kind of like, okay, what's happening here? And in
Mhm.
fact, my first impression was like, comp het is a hell of a thing. Like, just say that you're gay and get over it. Like,
Which like still not convinced she isn't. I
no,
Right?
like I was sitting there like, oh, her and Ava, man.
Yeah.
it's true.
Which I think like at the end it was kind of proven that she was and which okay, I thought that it was kind of random the whole like all of a sudden she's super in love with Ava thing because like the guy Max was his name, right? I think it was
Mhm.
Mhm.
Max. He was like, loved Ava and stuff, which he was supposed to be like an extension of her and that side of her. And so like that shows that she does love her or whatever. And then all of a sudden she was like super in love with Ava and like saying all this stuff. But like at the beginning, none of that was there.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
was just kind of really random at the end for that to just show up because she's like, oh, all these words that he's saying, I wrote down and scratched out. Like,
Mhm.
I've always thought this, but it's like, you
Mhm.
never did.
I think she's the definition of an unreliable narrator. Like
Oh,
she's
Yeah.
just and she's
ab-
not honest with herself at all.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so then after the first met Salon, she has this fight with Ava, her friend, and she ends up going back to their um she goes back to their party. And then it was so strange because like there's these boys there and I what I find really interesting is whenever someone says, "Oh, it's like a boy," they get corrected and they're like, "No, no, no, it's not a boy." So not only are these creations not men, they're not even boys. I found that really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but what she finds out is that wait, no, I have to go back. I'm not very good at this summary thing.
You're
Um,
fine.
so at the first meeting, she had gotten drunk and talked about her high school crush, and then when she's at this party, her high school crush shows up, but he's very strange. He keeps saying all these weird things in like the wrong word. And then all of the boys, like all the bunnies dates, and this guy starts trying to eat their corsages. And when she confronts them and is like, "What is going on? Why are you acting so weird?" He gets very angry with her, and then his head literally explodes,
That was
which
my first what the
I
fuck.
love.
I was like,
Uh,
what in the hell is happening?
it was a roller coaster of
Yeah.
a chapter, that's for sure. Because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is kind of strange.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little weird. And then all of a sudden it was like, Okay, what is
Good.
happening?
Got
Yeah.
it.
Right?
Got it.
No.
Yeah, it's also really strange that like they've been doing this for so long and they can't even give the guy genitals, and then she does it
Or
for
hands?
the first time,
the hands.
and she makes like the perfect man out of a deer.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But it's like the fact that she can do it without even knowing though, because like
Mhm.
spoiler for the end, Ava, like she literally made Ava without even knowing the bunnies or anything, and it just like
Mhm.
happened and she wasn't even thinking about it. But then like they're trying
Right.
so hard and they can't even give them hands.
Okay,
Like
wait.
I don't.
Do, are we thinking that Ava was like the same way Max and like the Darlings were, or is she just
I
like?
think that was
No, yeah, she
like
was.
because the
Oh, okay. Because
swan.
I was just kind of figuring she was a figment of her imagination, but y'all's explanation makes a hell of a lot more sense. I was really, really confused.
Yeah,
But then how
for
does
a
the
while
swan
I
get
thought
there?
Ava was like didn't exist. And I even texted that in the Discord because like it was
Yeah.
giving that vibe of like the second she had friends, Ava was gone.
yeah.
And so it was giving the like, oh, she has real friends now. She doesn't need Ava. So
Mhm.
Ava isn't there anymore. But then like Ava would show up again and I'm like, okay, maybe not. And I was like,
Mhm.
maybe she's dead because it was giving me like
Yes.
so they
Well, and like,
saw her at the party and then they weren't commenting on the like Ava laughing. They were just waving at her. So I was like, oh, maybe Ava wasn't actually there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I feel like the author did a really good job of kind of like keeping you wondering through the whole book, like what is going on. But
Even
but one of the things that messed with me is that in the like right after the first smut salon, she wakes up in her room and there's a bunny outside her window. And
Mhm.
all I could think about was, holy shit, they turned Ava into a bunny.
That's what
Like
I
I
thought
was
too.
full on convinced that they had turned Ava into a bunny.
Yeah.
And then Ava shows up later and I'm like, "What? She's
Where'd you
just
come
there?
from?
Where's she been?"
Yeah.
There's no explanation. She just shows up.
yeah,
It's
it
interesting
also
though that the bunnies were like, we just didn't want to tell you. We just like thought it was like whatever, but like we thought you were kind of weird for talking to this. Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, they think she was just talking to a bird? I'm still so confused by this book, you guys. I don't know what I just read. at all.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's too like thinky, I
Listen,
guess. Like it's a lot of you have to understand the emotions and like the whole like read in between the lines thing. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not an English teacher.
right?
I need you to tell me what is happening straight out. Like be like, so she made a girl out of a bird. Tell me that. Don't say, oh look, a dead swan, and you're supposed to assume it is Ava. Like type
Mhm.
thing, you know? I
Yeah.
need you to tell me what is happening. I can't think about it.
So I got to this point and I couldn't take notes anymore. I was like, this is, I don't even know what I'm reading at this point. I did put one more note in here and it says my hot take is she's lost her fucking mind and everyone is a hallucination. But
Very a beautiful mind. Like
right? But
that's the
after
thing.
that I was like, I can't even
Yeah. Let's
put
let's
my
just
thoughts into words.
maybe we can just describe the plot real quick and then we can just talk about whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Just because I didn't know which way would be better, like do the whole plot and then talk, or like talk as you do the plot. But
I think the whole plot then talk probably would work better because we like going all over the place.
yeah, originally I thought that too, but then I started writing out the plot and I was like, this is real long, you guys. So okay,
So you got
so
the first two parts.
yeah, okay, so then basically after the fight, Ava kind of disappears, and Samantha spends a lot of the rest of the book trying to look for her, trying to find her. She runs into Jonah, who's like the poet, who likes her and is really friendly and nice. And then she keeps getting drawn back into being with the bunnies. At one point, she even stops referring to herself as an I, like everyone's just bunny and it's we. They have a very
Yeah.
collective mind kind of thing happening.
Very homogenous.
Yeah, very much like a cult, very creepy. And then she finally finds Ava. She gets sort of like deprogrammed a little bit, but she goes back. She keeps going back to the bunnies, and I truly, my notes kept being like, just block them, like don't like I don't understand. But the one time that she does, they give her a bunny and they give her they call it a very ugly bunny, which is yeah, very mean girls of them, to make this boy. So I don't think we actually ever said what the bunnies are doing is they're taking rabbits and through their like collective force of concentration or whatever, the rabbit explodes and then knock 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 on the door, a bunny boy hybrid is there. They usually don't have genitals. They don't have good hands. They often have hair lips. They're not very good creations, but they have been better since Samantha's been involved. And so she tries to make this hybrid, this construct, which is their like poetic process or whatever they're trying to do. I didn't really get that. It doesn't work, but they go outside and this stag that had been there is gone and they find a boy at the bus stop, but he looks too real. He looks too good to be a bunny. So they kind of
Has hands.
he has
Yeah,
hands
he has hands.
He's a
and
functioning
talk.
human
He's not
being.
talking about like it makes the sex faster. What?
Right?
He laughed so hard. So then Samantha just has this like really bad holiday break and she ends up following the boy back to Ava's place where she used to live and anyway, she ends up back at Ava's place and Max the boy is there and it turns out that Max and Ava have been together. And then she spends a lot of the rest of the book questioning if she's sane or not, I think. She's like, is he a bunny? Is he a boy? She finally decides that yes, he is a bunny boy that she created because he's doing and saying all of the things that she thought. And he's also obsessed with Ava, like she's obsessed with Ava, but he's also obsessed with the bunnies. And he has been
But like in an evil way.
yes,
He
exactly.
like messes
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. And he's been kind of creating these versions of himself that they would be most into, which he only knows because she knows, because she's obsessed with them. And so at the final workshop of the year with the bunnies, it turns out that he's been making them self-harm, actually, sometimes physically, like carving words into their skin, which was very squicky to me.
Or he carved the words into their skin as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
I
Okay.
think that's what they implied is that he did it.
Okay. That's interesting. That he totally, yeah, I had taken that to be more like he manipulated them into doing it. But
Yeah, I took it more as like a sex act, like he was doing it while they were.
Yeah.
okay, interesting.
Which makes a
That
lot of
definitely
sense
makes
with how
sense.
they were.
Yes,
Mm.
it does, absolutely. Um, so the bunnies realize that Max is involved with Ava and Samantha, and they're like weird threesome that's not a threesome. And they kidnap Samantha and put these weird masks on and like leave her tied up overnight. She finally gets out. She goes back to her place with Ava, and Max is there holding a dead swan. Where and Samantha realizes that Ava actually is a construct. She's one of these hybrids that she had created and when she was intensely lonely last year.
Yeah.
Max decides that he's going to kill the bunnies. She goes after them. And the bunnies are obsessed with Max. They like attack him basically, like he's a celebrity, which was really strange. And so, in this kind of like moment of telepathic communication almost, Max asks her to kill him. And Samantha does. She chops his head off like they did with all their hybrids that don't work. And he turns back into a stag, injuring the bunnies. And then suddenly it's graduation and she graduated and it's all fine except the bunnies are very injured and she decides that she's going to be fine. She's going to be fine without Ava. She considers remaking her but actually decides to be friends with Jonah instead, which I did like the end of.
Yeah.
That's the book. I
The
feel like I'm
whole
back in
ending
school.
Such a
was really
wild
good.
ride.
Yeah,
It's
Like
one
this-
big acid trip.
it was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
What I found weird is when they cut off Max's head and the stag was completely fine.
Right?
Like the stag wasn't injured at all. It was perfectly fine and ran off after hurting the bunnies really badly, trying to get away. But like, I found it weird that like the stag's head wasn't cut off. So like, how are they actually connected to the animal?
That
Right?
Ava was killed, but so was the swan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
which is
interesting.
really weird.
I
So
mean,
unless maybe they killed Ava and then killed the swan when they realized that Ava was a swan.
Well, but they say in the end that they knew all along. Like the first time they saw Ava, they were like, "Oh, holy shit, she made one."
So maybe that's why they killed the swan too, because they knew what was gonna happen. Because like they killed so many of the darlings that like they know that the bunny's fine, so they
Yeah.
didn't risk her making Ava again.
I sort of,
Oh.
I don't know that the bunnies were fine. Like the
No, because
rabbits that they kill. I think that they're just dead. Are they bunnies again?
I don't know because like the stag was there again once Max died, so I don't know if it's like some sort of weird like Max was ready to
right,
go, so that's why the stag was fine, or
but with Ava or with Samantha, neither of the constructs she made showed the animals she used exploding. Um, for example, this with the swan, she just wasn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where
they were
what the
there.
bunnies were doing was almost like instead they were sacrificing the animal to
Mhm.
create the construct,
That's
which
Yeah.
could explain why they couldn't get it right and
Mhm.
Samantha just accidentally got it right because she wasn't sacrificing anything. She just transmuted, trans, transmutated.
Yeah, that works.
Transfiguration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I think there's something, it's kind of like a metaphor for how they write, right? Like she talks a lot
yeah,
about how the bunnies, their writing process is really oh my God, I'm
chaotic.
blanking on the word. It's chaotic, but it's like it's drawing so much on other things. Like it's not original. It's really
Yeah,
reductive, basically. So they're taking a thing that exists, destroying it, and then going, look at this thing that I made,
yeah.
versus Samantha has just made a thing. And yeah, she took something that was there, but she didn't have to destroy anything in the process. So I just
This
took
book is so deep, I can't.
where are you guys getting that Ava was a hybrid? Because I believe you completely and you're totally right, but
Um,
Towards the end, she like thinks or remembers the lake or whatever, and she remembers a swan, and then she remembers that Ava just like appeared and the swan was gone. And then like Ava kept telling her there was no swan that morning, remember?
hmm
And then she's like, but I remember there being a swan. Like
Yeah.
when she finally like I guess fixes her brain or something, she's like, oh, there was a swan, and then it was gone, and all of a sudden Ava was there, and it was just kind
Oh,
of like a memory
yeah.
thing that like got like messed up in
Mhm.
her brain.
well,
It's
and there was
very thick.
also a moment where the bunnies mentioned like to her that that they knew she could do it because she did Ava by accident. And then they're also like talking about how she doesn't deserve the power that she has because she doesn't even realize she's doing it.
hmm
I must have skimmed that part because I don't remember
yeah,
them saying that, but
yeah.
I was skimming a lot of the like end stuff.
It was like when they were having their last kind of fight.
Then yeah,
And
I probably
I
just
think
skimmed.
it was like right before she killed Max.
Okay, yeah, I definitely skimmed over that because I was very confused on what was happening.
Yeah, same.
I did like how Max was kind of like a more not demented but like evil, violent, I guess, version of her emotions.
hmm
So like with the bunnies for each of their like section of his project, it like went off of what her nicknames for them were, which
hmm
Mhm.
I thought was a really good like connection. Like how the girl that she called Cupcake had the cupcake and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And I thought that was a really cool connection because like he was taking her emotions because he was her construct and
Yeah.
just like amplifying it basically and doing what she wishes, not that she wishes she could do, but like she's thought about in a way.
Oh, here. We did want to tell you, girl, about your best friend or whatever. We almost did a couple times, but you were just so delusional. We thought maybe if we told you, you would have like a breakdown or pee your pants or something. We didn't know. I mean, you were just so invested in being too cool for everyone. in not being around us or even the poets or any actual people at all. And so this is like when they're having the argument about they're like, she's like, why did you kill her? Um and here we go. Honestly, Samantha, you probably you killed her, if anything, and probably you don't even remember because you're just that crazy and you're just that lost. We're not going to pretend we know the details of whatever squatter drama you had with your fake threesome in that abandoned house on the west side, but we can tell you this. Whatever happened in the end, we're sure it was for the best. You can really, really trust us on that. Um, I mean, you have to kill your darlings, remember? I mean, they're not real, Samantha, remember? Oh, wait, that's right. Samantha forgets. And so it's like this whole conversation of like, you forgot that you made her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I don't think is really fair because it's not like Ava was sitting there suddenly and she went, "Oh my God, I made a human out of a swan." Like she didn't like forget. Like,
Yeah.
There's no way she was
There's
She
gonna
no way
make
didn't
of
that
knowing.
realize.
connection.
yeah, yeah. Um,
What I find funny is the fact that like once the swan was dead, the house went back to abandoned. So like it had like all the furniture and stuff while Ava was there, and then once
Right?
it was realized that Ava wasn't real, all of the stuff in there was not real anymore.
I
Yeah.
think it was never real. I think that was part of her imagination, but it
Yeah,
could
like
also
part
have
of the
been
delusion.
constructs. But
Which is
my
like weird.
understanding was that it was like she was actually just they were just squatting and imagining
Like
all
playing
of it.
house.
Yeah, because like she keeps having these flashbacks to her mother being like, "Why do you lie? Why are you're like I'm afraid for you. Like your imagination is too much." And she says
Yeah.
because better story is why she lies.
Right.
Yeah. I also want to know what's up with that dad, because that dad is a criminal of some sort. And
It's like, what?
it was like, my dad is in hiding and I can never see him because of something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded
And
like
I'm
a
just
white
like, that's
collar
a weird
crime.
point to bring up, but
Uh-huh.
okay.
But then
Yeah.
she just glosses over it like,
Yeah,
oh
she
yeah,
doesn't even go to
he's
like
he's
my
hiding
dad's a
from
criminal and
someone.
he's in hiding. If he ever comes here, like he'll be in trouble or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, why?
She
What
glossed
does
over
that
that
have to
so
do
hard I
with the
didn't even catch
story?
that.
Oh
But
my
also,
god, it happened
I
like 3 times she brought him up because she was like, "Oh, my dad called," and then is like, "Oh, you can't come here and I can't go there because blah blah blah."
I
I
really
do
like that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I do, however, feel like the moment in the bus was like a fourth wall break when she was sitting there reading the sign like, do you have schizophrenia? I felt like that was a fourth wall break moment where it's like, yeah, she's crazy.
Yeah.
And maybe not schizophrenic, maybe schizophrenic, but also just generally like you're crazy, like you're losing your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've gone a little organic, as they say. I liked narratively that the dad wasn't dead. I feel like a lot of times it's just really easy to be like, well, we don't want to deal with the parents. So they both died in a car crash at the end. Which fair enough happens, but I think it's a more interesting thing that like the whole story revolves around Samantha's loneliness and her abandonment issues and her rejection issues. So it's interesting that it's like her dad is alive and he could be closer to her, but he'd have to be in prison and he's just not going to do that. And he could have just not done the thing that's going to put him in prison. Like you don't have to do white collar crime. Like
Can I
so.
just say something that I found so hilarious
Mhm.
is that early on in the book, I underlined something that Ava said, and I was like, really the only true adult in this book.
Okay,
And then at the end of the book, I'm like,
Huh?
I
and
had
she wasn't
issues with
even
Ava.
real.
I had issues with Ava from the beginning. I feel like we were supposed to make that just juxtaposition. It was supposed to be like Ava's her real friend. Why is she ditching her? And it was like Ava's also kind of a bitch. Not necessarily in a terrible way, like the bunnies are kind of awful, but I didn't love Ava either. I was like, you're not better than
No,
them.
It got to
Like,
the end and I
but
was like,
she
why is
was
the
more.
only person I like Samantha? Even though I like loathed her at the beginning. I was like, why do I hate everyone but Samantha
I know.
now?
Oh, and Jonah. I like Jonah a lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Jonah.
Jonah
Jonah's
was
my
the
favorite.
best character.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for him. He just kept getting pushed away by
No.
Samantha, and I'm just like, just give him a hug, please. He's
Yeah.
lonely too.
Just be
I love
nice to
them
him.
together.
Like I mean, this is the first book that I actually made a sticker for "Why are you such a bitch?"
um so I ran into an interesting TikTok, and I'll have to send it to the account and we can like repost it or something, because now of course I don't remember her name and I apologize for that. But this woman's theory on Bunny was that the whole book is actually Jonah's project, that he's actually the MFA writer. And so the whole thing was his final project. And one of the things that she points out is like in the very end, like at graduation, Jonah looks over and his cohort are these like eerily similar, like four guys who are poets. I don't know if you guys caught that. I thought that was really interesting. It was like a mirror, right? Yeah. So her theory is that this is actually all fiction. This is all Jonah's story. Which I thought was kind of interesting, because it would be weird if it was like the actual equal opposite. But I also thought it was interesting that like, yeah, Jonah's just kind of self-assured, even though he's got lots of issues. He's like, no, I don't need to worry about them being friends. Like, we're cool.
Yeah.
With Jonah being the like person who's making it all up, I don't know, because like some of the little bits that like get brought up and then are just kind of like never brought up again are really weird if it's coming from someone else, like her dad, or there was something else, like the naked man outside the window, and little stuff that like are never explained but are like brought up as if they're gonna be a plot point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that it would be weird if like Jonah was just coming up with these random things and then like
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
also it could work because it's like fleshing out the world. I don't know.
Well, I think that the theory was that like she's not real at all. Like that whole none of those guys are real at all. And so he's using it to like explain his own loneliness and his own ostracism. He's being ostracized by his cohort. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that that's what's happening. I think that it's real because I like to believe in a magical world. But I thought it was an interesting theory because I hadn't considered that at all.
Yeah.
Another interesting theory was one of the TikToks that Abby sent was that, you know, none of this was actually that they were just like, it was literally just a writing club, and so they would sit down together and they would write their stories and their characters out, and bunnies were never happy with their characters. And that the death of Ava was actually Samantha being like, you know what, I am done with this character and I'm gonna go ahead and use Max for my thesis.
Arthur Conan Doyle style. I'm
Yeah.
done with this character.
Right.
Dead.
Dead. So I thought that was an interesting theory, but along the same lines as Nicole, I choose to believe that it was all real because I like
more
to
interesting
think
that
of
way.
the magical. It's more interesting that way.
Yeah.
I would love to see if Mona Awad has said anything specific on her inspiration for this book, because I mean, listen, it is really rare for me to find a book that has gripped me in the way this one has, because it's not like I could put it down. It wasn't like one of those I have to read this all in one sitting books. I mean, it's only like what, 250, 300 pages.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple weeks to read it, but I cannot stop thinking about it and like processing over it. And that is, in my opinion, one of the best signs of a good book, is one that just like I feel like this is one of those books that I'll read over and over again and think something different each time.
Yeah.
So I looked up an interview with her about the bunny book, and so someone was like, oh, why did you do research for Bunny? The workshop meetings are like remind me of witches, stuff like that, but like a candy coated version.
Oh, interesting.
And she's like, yeah, I was looking for something very creepy. She wanted to evoke a coven atmosphere with the workshops, but the on and off campus one. She wanted to be playful and absurd because, you know, bunnies. The writing students are trying their hand at the occult for the purposes of creating hot guys. process they describe as high art, so it couldn't take itself too seriously. But it's a lot about creativity is mysterious, so it felt right to do that. A lot of people in the writing and MFA communities reference magic and the occult. She's done ritual work, apparently.
Oh,
So
maybe
it's a
maybe it's a
combination.
self-insert book.
It's a combination of Carrie's telekinetic powers and a child's idea of seance. And like the movie The Craft also played a role.
I absolutely thought about The Craft. 100%.
So it says teen witches with great outfits. Can't go wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't think I've ever seen The Craft, but the
Would love The Craft.
my feelings towards this book made me think of Danny Darko.
Let's see, I've never seen Donnie Darko.
It's like one of those things that just stays with you for the rest of your life, whether you like it
Yeah.
or not. It
Yeah.
will stay with you for the rest of your life. So it's like I was telling Steve, because I was like, I gave this a 5-star review, and he's just like, but you were like, what? Like the things I heard you say about the book, I thought you hated the characters. And I'm like, yeah, I hate every single character in this book, but I gave it 5 stars. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because this book has gripped me in such a way that I will think of it every day of my life for the rest of my life. Very much like Donnie Darko. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, have you not thought about Donnie Darko every day since you saw it? And he's like, no, I haven't thought about Donnie Darko in a long time. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm the weird one.
No. I thought it was really interesting that like when they talked about their hybrids, that it was even though they keep talking about like, oh, we can't get the bodies right or whatever, their ideals are still like this very like perfected sort of sexless perfection where like a Disney prince or even like they talk
Mhm.
about like, oh God, we've got it like who was the one who was obsessed with sex? It wasn't Creepy Doll. It was
They all were in
Vignette?
different ways.
they all were. It might have been Vignette. Yeah. She kept being like, I don't care about the hands. I want to cock, which was so funny
Yeah,
to me.
The
I
fact
think
that
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 was
was like the
Vignette,
goal for them.
but
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But, you know, it really felt like they didn't really care because they could just go find a guy in a bar if they really just want to have sex. Like they don't
Yeah.
have to do this. So it was this weird like perfection. They talk about there's a funny moment where they talk about maybe like a chic or something and then someone's like, we're worried about your orientalism, bunny. Like that's really like you need to be careful with that. I was like, you do.
Uh-huh.
um so I don't know, the like the perfection of what their ideals of like the young James Dean and so like dangerous
Mhm.
but not dangerous versus what Samantha creates, Max, who ends up being like actually dangerous and actually real.
Yeah.
I found myself getting to the end of this book and just wondering what in the world was the point. Like, I usually like when English teachers are like, "Oh, why would the author write this book? Like, what is the theme here?" I'm like, I couldn't tell you. Could
Uh-uh.
not tell you what that was for this book, and I just don't know. Like, I can't figure out what to rate it because I just don't know.
I think it was about like creation and the creative process in general. I actually spent a lot of time thinking about Frankenstein. Has anyone read Frankenstein? Okay.
It's on my list.
It's
Oh wait,
good.
no, yeah, I've read half of it.
Okay. Perfect. That's fine. What's so
Oh wait,
interesting?
I have read it,
Okay, cool. Perfect.
but it was in high school, so I barely read it.
Yeah. I mean, same, but like, one of the things that's so interesting about Frankenstein is that we talk about how it's this male scientist, right? Like it's Frankenstein, he creates this monster, he doesn't like the monster, he runs away from his responsibilities, blah, 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 whatever. But a lot of people, myself included, see Frankenstein as a metaphor or an analogy for motherhood, right? Like you've created this thing, but oh my God, I accidentally created a monster. And what's so interesting about that, but is that it's like feminine creation, right? Motherhood, but it's very male centered, right? Like you create a man, you create a child using a man, But then also, especially in that time period for a man, like your whole purpose as a woman was to give your husband an heir, the end. Um, so it's very male centered. And this kind of felt like that similar kind of creation, but completely decentering men. Like
Mhm.
men aren't even the product because we're not even going to not call them men. We're not going to call them boys. Like they're hybrids, there are creations, there are darlings. Maybe they're a bunny boy, but like the idea of creation and the creative process completely decentering men and like what would that look like is kind of something that I was thinking about. So
I like that a lot. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I totally see that, and that's really interesting.
yeah.
I
Anyway,
felt like with the bunnies, at least, I felt like it was their attitude towards it, like they talked about feminism and all that stuff, but it felt like a almost performative,
very.
like they were thinking about feminism. And for example, is like them she mentions at one point that one of the characters wrote a story about a poor person. And these are very wealthy women who don't actually know what it's like to be poor. It's like that woman recently who did the movie about poor people, and she's like filthy rich. Steve was saying we should watch it. It's
I don't
apparently
know.
like really bad. This wealthy woman recently made a movie about poor people without like talking to poor people.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Love that.
that's right.
But it was like that kind of a thing, right? So these are women who have never actually experienced sexism, who have never actually experienced
Hmm.
Yeah,
these real world issues, who are trying to like create something better. And how can you create something better if you don't know where the problems are,
Yeah.
right? And
yeah.
so I feel like that's kind of a big part of why they couldn't make it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like performative in every way, but very definitely white feminism. Like
Oh
she
yeah.
talks about like even in the first chapter, she mentions Game of Thrones hair, which I took to mean very elaborate braids and very, very pale, like white hair.
Yeah.
And I think one of them had red hair before, but like she dyed it blonde. They all have very blonde,
Mhm.
white feminism. Um, which I thought was interesting. You're right. Everything's very performative.
Yeah.
Every part of it is performative. And
Mhm.
I think the unsung hero of this whole book is the janitor at the end who's like, you kids and your damn performance art.
Uh-huh.
I loved him. Like him and the professor's daughter who was like, I'm so out. Like,
Yeah.
they're my favorites. Those
Hmm.
two. Like, I cannot deal with you people.
I
Like
also
it's
don't believe she didn't sleep with the professor.
yeah,
Like,
I
as
don't
much as
buy
she
that.
wants to believe something happened, I don't believe she didn't.
Oh, I
Like,
totally believe that it didn't. I think that my reading was that like she's just so lonely and then she just like word vomited all this stuff and she didn't know how to recover because she's still young, right? She's not,
mhm.
I don't know, that's how I took it.
I don't necessarily mean like that night specifically, but like
But at some
surely
point,
like yeah, like there was a kiss, there was something. Because
yeah,
like,
Yeah.
that's just like I don't know.
that totally could be. She's such an
Well,
unreliable narrator, like who knows?
but also, I mean, the interactions that she's describing with the professor, it felt very like maybe he was manipulating the situation. And then
Mhm.
when the bunnies saw them driving together, he went, "Oh shit, I'm gonna get in trouble." And
Yeah.
Yeah.
put a stop to it,
Hmm.
because he realized he I feel like he knew he was doing something wrong from the get-go,
Yeah.
but he thought he could get away with it until the bunnies saw them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's
Um,
definitely taking advantage of her.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then her being kind of kind of just naive, I think. I think
Yeah.
she was just
Yeah.
very naive.
And just so
Um,
lonely.
and so I don't think that she saw that he was trying to take advantage of her. I think that she just thought they had a good friendship, and that,
Mhm.
he was somebody that she looked up to, and he saw her for her, and she's lonely and she wanted a friend, and he become her friend.
Mhm.
And so when he stopped talking to her, it became this thing of like, oh shit, I did something wrong,
Mhm.
which is very much something that someone in that situation would feel.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also think like a mixture of the bunny saw them and then also her word vomiting made him like realize like, yeah, this is really not what I should be doing. Like he knew it was wrong,
Mhm.
obviously, because he's like, I'm the professor, whatever. But like the bunnies made it the bunny saw him, so it made him like think about it. He's like, oh shit, like I'm gonna get in trouble. And then she said word vomiting, and he's like, okay.
She's gotten emotionally
Yeah.
attached.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, this is actually going too far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So I
took it
think
as
it's a mix
like,
between the two of them.
yeah. I took it as like, this is definitely inappropriate. But like, even at the graduation scene in the end, she talks about how like he's really not that much older than I am. Like, he's just kind of working it out too. Like, oops. Like, yeah, that probably
Right.
wasn't appropriate for either of us, more so in his case. But also, like, okay, it got awkward and weird with your advisor. Like, it's not the end of the world kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I also feel like even at one point Ava said something about like, oh, I get it, you used to be rich,
I noted that
to
too.
Samantha.
Yeah,
And
you
so
said
I'm
that version.
wondering if maybe she also hasn't experienced as much real world stuff as she acts like she has, you know?
Mhm.
I
I
think
mean,
that's brought up too. I think like in one of the bunnies fights they say that. Like they say something like that, oh you act like you don't that you're poor and all this, but it's all or something like along those
Yeah.
lines. They like throw it in her face. And I think that might be why the dad's in trouble. It
yeah,
might be a whole like two broke girl situation where with Caroline's dad. I don't know if you guys seen that show.
yeah,
But basically there's like this rich white girl and then like her dad gets in trouble because he's been doing like a bunch of white collar crime and stuff and lost
mhm,
everyone all this money. And so he goes to jail and she's just kind of broke now and has literally nothing. And she has to like
Yeah.
learn to, be broke and like a real person. So it's like I'm thinking maybe it's that situation. That's why the dad's like in trouble and why she's all of a sudden broke now.
And I mean, that would also
yeah.
explain why she's all woe is me. I don't have enough money to get by. I have to live in this shitty apartment. Nobody cares about me. Nobody
I mean,
loves me. I
that's
know
real.
somebody who went through a similar situation who very much turned into that person where you're looking at them and you're like, why are you acting like a high schooler? You're in your 30s.
Yeah,
And, she grew up rich and then something happened and her family lost all their money and now she's not rich and she is not accustomed to that, so she's just like acts like everyone's out to get her and expects everything to come easily to her.
Mhm.
I mean,
Long do you think this book like took place in? Like until the not the graduation part, but from Max dying from the beginning. How long do you think that was? Like months?
At least went over
Well,
like the Christmas break. We know
So
that.
a while,
well,
right?
you mean like from
yes.
when Max dies to the end?
No. From the beginning to when Max dies. So like not the graduation, but like
Well, they're at the like welcome back party in the first
Mhm.
chapter. So
the
I
winter
think,
break. Basically like a semester, a little more than that.
yeah, and then Max dies like sort of halfway through, I think, the spring semester. So it's
Yeah.
like it's just one full school year.
Or no, because they were
Yeah.
talking like this is the last one of the year. Like, thanks for meeting all this time. So I think it's the full year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
it's like
because
they've
how did she
finished
not
and they
have a
have
job and pay for an apartment?
She gets a stipend.
she's on a full scholarship.
And
Yeah.
Still,
part
how
of that
is she
was a
paying for an
stipend for
apartment?
housing.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know how that works. I don't get scholarship.
I think because she's in the grad school program, she gets this stipend. Like Jonah's always talking about like, oh, I spent it all on books. And she's like, no, I have to spend it on rent.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I
Yeah.
passed over that because I was like, how is she not working?
Right.
And
Well, but Jonah
you know this?
probably has a job and she doesn't.
Yeah. Which may I don't know
I
if
don't
he does, but
know. Yeah, probably.
Jonah strikes me as the kind of guy who like works in the evenings at a bar or, whatever, and
Mhm.
just,
also
Yeah.
I think
does his
Jonah's
homework
parents
at
have
work.
money. I think Jonah's parents have money because during Christmas break he was like, "Oh, I was gonna go home, but then didn't," and
Mhm.
something about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
But I
he
don't know
was
if that
worried
was like a
about
lie or like
he
him
was
actually being like, oh,
yeah, I don't know. He was talking about basically being in recovery because he was talking about how he decided not to go home because he worried that it would make him relapse.
Very common in Alaska.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. The drugs and the
I would
alcohol.
imagine so. I
Uh-huh.
mean,
When it stays
how
dark
much
up
sun
there
do
all the
you
time.
get?
Yeah. In the winter, like not a lot.
Is seasonal affective disorder more like yearly affective disorder?
Yeah. My brother has to come home in the winter from Alaska because it's like it's not good up it's not good.
Jeez.
The sad gets you. Um
anyway, that's why I was thinking maybe Jonah had money, like his family did. So maybe he doesn't have to work. So even if he used his stipend on books, he was fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
But I
demand.
don't know. That's what I'm assuming is like majority of the people at the school are pretty much rich. So, which
I
is like the only way you can make it as a writer, to be honest.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
took
true.
Samantha's issues about money to be almost less about money and more about like her rejection and abandonment issues, and she's just so lonely, and like she's definitely using that to isolate herself, like I'm not like you guys, like she's definitely got a little bit not like the other girls,
Oh
but
yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah, but I feel like, if she had a good relationship with her dad, she might be less like, you guys don't get it, because she doesn't have anywhere to go for Christmas. It felt less like the money thing and more like the family thing to me.
Yeah.
um I wanted to ask, what do you think she wrote about? Because, like, for most of the book, she talks about she has writer's block. She doesn't have her senior project done. What do you
Mhm.
think her actual project was about? Like, was it about the bunnies or was it just about something totally different? All of a sudden, she can write now.
Well, I mean, at one point, she kind of alludes to her project being about Ava.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
because she was
Yeah.
saying that she has like all these journals and stuff that she was writing, and that's
Uh-huh.
why she was like relating everything that that Max was saying to those journals.
Okay.
Right. And so it kind of I got the vibe that she was like writing really dark stuff or romantic stuff about Ava, like, girl pining over her girl best friend and like because the bunnies were always talking about how dark it was.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I wonder if like she was just super obsessive over Ava and was like writing some really dark stuff about, being in
Mhm.
love with her best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know if like her end thesis was about that because I think I could be wrong because like again I skimmed over the last of the book, but I think she said something about like how she changed directions at the end because of
Mhm.
everything that happened. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I think probably originally it was gonna be that and it was gonna be something super dark and about Ava and all this because like that's the only thing she was feeling. But then after everything that happened with like Ava and Max and the bunnies, I think
Mhm.
it probably switched to something like lighter maybe
Yeah.
and like supposed to show like her growth and how she got out of that or whatever. So I don't
Yeah.
know what it could exactly be about, but like I think it's something lighter. Maybe it's like what good came out of that situation or something good. Like I feel like that's what's supposed to be implied is that she's happy now. And so like her
Yeah.
thesis was happy and or
Yeah.
she did write the thesis about that stuff and then showed how it helped her as a person or whatever.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So I don't
Um,
know.
on the front of the bunny's reactions to her stories,
Yeah.
I just have to say I love so much how they kept using her stories to like they were clearly talking about her and not the book. Like here it's let's see. Oh, so they're talking about her book, and it's weird. Cupcake says it last. The first time I read it, I have to confess, I was quite put off. This is when they're like being nicer to her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Tell us about that, Caroline, Fosco urges. Well, it just seemed so mean at first. And angry, Creepy Doll adds, not looking at me, and abrasive. Dark, but like not a good dark, Vignette says. And just way too invested in its own outsiderness.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It really keeps the reader at a distance at first, but then. So it's like just this very clear. This is the one that I highlighted was, I mean, I still think it could definitely open itself up a bit more.
Hmm.
And so, like, they're very clearly talking about her,
Yeah.
but she doesn't seem to realize that.
They do that at the end too during Max's project when they read their stuff, but they're
Mhm.
all like talking crap about each other through
Yeah.
saying that kind of stuff, but it's more obvious there. I mean, like it's obvious to us, the first one, but like it's way more obvious to like anyone that that's what they're saying towards the end.
Yeah.
Because they're like literally being like, you suck, like I'm better than you, and all
Yeah.
this, and like it's just way more obvious and less passive aggressive towards that. But they like do that again towards the end, so that's
Mhm.
just the way that they talk shit.
Yeah. Which
Very
is very
passive
Mean Girls.
aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think she ever made more of the bunny hybrids? Because she clearly can do it like whenever.
No, I think she's over what was going on. And so like I don't think she has that power anymore because I think it probably comes from like her dark emotions.
Oh, okay.
Because like Ava came from her loneliness
Mhm.
and like extreme loneliness. So like that's a dark emotion. And then Max came like from her hatred of like the bunnies and the situation she was in and like how she's missing Ava and all that. So I think it comes from her extreme dark emotions, and I just think now that she's better in a
Mhm.
way, like I don't think she has that kind of power anymore because I don't think she'll feel that extremely like even if it's happy, I don't think it'll be to that extreme
Yeah.
where
I like
it'll
that.
do it.
I like that a lot. Because I was thinking about it as like, well, she'll choose to or she won't. But I like that it's like, no, she had to have been in that spot emotionally.
Yeah.
I just think it comes from like the extreme emotions, and like
Mhm.
when you're happy, you're not feeling that extreme emotions anymore.
Yeah,
Because
that's
like
a desperate need.
exactly,
Right.
because like dark emotions you feel way more than like good emotions. Like you can be like extremely happy or whatever, but it's never going to be as extreme as when you were depressed. Like
Yeah.
that side of it is never
That's the
that
truth.
extreme.
Well, and like,
So
I mean, also kind of going off of what you said has just made me think about you know, the people that she made. So like Ava came from loneliness and sadness, and so Ava was like the person that would agree with her on everything, would, you know, like was there for her no matter what to kind of um get rid of that loneliness, right?
Mhm.
Max was born out of anger, which because she walked into the bunny's house thinking, remember, you hate them.
Yeah.
Um, and so he was born out of anger, which would explain why he so aggressively went for the bunnies.
I think also Ava was created out of a need of needing someone to like help her out, which is why in a lot of the situations that she was with Ava kind of was in control. She kind of
Yeah.
just did what
Yeah.
Ava wanted to do and like stuff like that because like I feel like she didn't know where she was. She didn't know what to do. She was lonely. She had nothing. So she needed someone to make those decisions for her, which
Yeah.
is another facet of Ava's like personalities that she was not like controlling, but like she basically dominated the relationship, which is another need, I
Yeah.
guess, that she needed.
Yeah.
Which is probably why she like went towards the lion, is because like he was that professor, and so like it was that control that she needed from someone because she needed
Mhm.
someone
Yeah.
to tell her what to do because she was
Mhm.
lost.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, like,
like a
we've all
parent
been there,
figure.
right?
Yeah. Someone to just take care of you. Like, my God, just
Yeah.
take care of me for a minute.
Yeah.
Which is probably why she imagined the squatter house too, is because she needed someone to be like, no, come live with me. I need to take care of you type thing because she had a crappy
Mhm.
house. Her neighbors were terrible. She had a naked man outside her window. Like she needed a better place and she couldn't do it herself. She needed someone to be like, hey, come here. Cause like she also often compared like some of the stuff with Ava to like stuff from her mom. Because
Mhm.
like the magnet, for example, it was at Ava's place now because all this. So like I think she kind of saw Ava as somewhat of the motherly figure.
Mhm.
So I think it was also from a need of wanting her mom.
Yeah. Well, even like there was one point when Max led her to Ava's house, she was thinking of both Ava and her mom in such a way that I got the two confused. Like, because she went from thinking about her mom to having memories of being at this place. Um, and then, like, I didn't realize that she had moved to thinking about Ava until she started knocking on the door and calling for Ava. So
Yeah.
like I actually got confused thinking, wait, did she grow up in this town? Like, is he leading her to her childhood home? I didn't I don't
Yeah.
remember her saying she grew up here.
Right.
Um, so I thought that like that's a really interesting connection that you made because like that was
What you
such a
got.
from her talking about her mom to her talking about Ava was like
Hmm.
a direct line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Ava was on the good side of her creations because, like, it was more of a need of needing to be taken care of, needing a friend, needing all that kind of stuff, while Max was on the darker side of it, which kind of showed with like their looks too, because Max was that dark, smoky character, and Ava
Yeah,
had like the white feathers and stuff, which obviously because she was a swan, but
right.
like she had the lighter features and stuff like that. So it shows the two sides of that dark emotion that you
Right.
can get from where she was feeling, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
But also like she was very much like most of the things that she said as advice for Samantha were like the adult things to say. She was the adult friend. She was the Nicole of the group.
Okay. Sure.
Well, but like I mean in that she's complaining about the bunnies and how they are treating her and she's just like they're not worth your time. Like why are you even worrying yourself about this? It's not
Exactly.
worth your energy to think about them.
Stop texting them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
totally, my
stop.
God.
Like just block them.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Like that was the mom friend
Yeah.
coming out. And
Totally.
so that was like why I think I put like the only adult character in this book because she was the only one who was like these people are fucked up. You just need to like walk away.
What
Yeah.
I found really interesting was that Ava was trying to push her to quit the school, which I thought was kind of weird because, like, I think the school was the best thing for her because it gave her, like, that constant thing and it gave her, like, the connection to, like, the better life or whatever when she graduates. Like, at the end, you can see that she's happier that she graduated and stuff like that. So I'm wondering why Ava was pushing so hard for her to quit the school because like that was like a main thing that she'd say all the time is like that school sucks, leave.
Yeah.
Like they don't deserve you, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of conflicting with all of the other stuff that Ava had going on and was talking about, like you were saying, the motherly stuff and taking care of her. So like I don't know if that was just one of the opinions that like Sam was too scared to do, and so it was like voiced through Ava. But
Yeah.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
it
Well,
was
it's
just
like I mean, so for me, when I was in college in music, I had that voice inside my head that was just like, just fucking drop out. Like I almost dropped out so many times because the the pressure that's put on you, especially in an art school, to be perfect with something that you can never achieve perfection in,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's soul crushing.
Yeah.
And so I actually found myself near the end of my school, I found myself resenting music because of the way that I had to interact with it in school. And it took me a couple of years of not being in school to start enjoying it again. Um,
okay, so maybe that's what Ava was aiming for, because Ava was the artistic type too. She was in
right.
painting or something.
Yeah, so it was like Ava was that side of Samantha that was like, this is destroying your creativity.
Mm-hmm.
It's shoving you into little boxes. Just quit and write and publish. You don't need the degree,
Mm-hmm.
which is true, in a way.
I think that makes a lot of sense too, what you're saying, because even like when she stops going, like to avoid the bunnies, is the first time that she has any sort of creativity. She's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm writing all this stuff because I stopped going to school.
Mhm.
Like,
Because
because
you
she had
stop
to get out
having
of that
that.
headspace.
Yeah, and you stop having that external judgment that makes you feel unworthy.
You're so dark and off-putting, but like in a good way.
Yeah,
Way.
Like, but I loved it. But like, babe.
right? Yeah.
Honey, are you okay?
Yeah, exactly. Oh. Oh my gosh. Wait, hang on. Oh, I thought it was really interesting that they didn't kill all of the bunnies, all of the
Right?
hybrids. Like the one that just shows up and is like
Yeah.
serving appetizers. That was like a horror movie. I was like,
Mhm.
Jesus Christ. Like,
Or like is working in
Right.
the one like place that there as like a dishwasher or waiter or whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, hold on, what?
they go to their mini restaurant and it's like, oh, one of ours is in the back. I was like, this is horrific.
Or,
Right? Like,
how?
I'm
They
sorry,
literally
what?
explode, and they're like, oh, it's under the table, it's fine. And it's like, how?
Oh my God. It was, I mean,
Because it's like, are the bunnies getting them these jobs, or are they getting them themselves?
I
And
think
how
they're
are they
getting
doing
them.
these jobs without real hands.
Like, I just don't get how they're getting the jobs when all they can say is like, tell me
Like,
about yourself.
right?
Tell
And
me
also, like,
everything.
how can you
That
be
made
a
me laugh so hard.
dishwasher when you can't remove your gloves and
I
your
mean,
hands are furry?
I think you could probably do it because you just
Furry
like
hands.
hold a plate and then you like.
Oh my God.
Do
I
they
think
have
you can do it
tails?
because like
Build.
I think some of them, the failed ones, did. Because I remember them saying something about like tails are hot, and the second I read that, I was like, Nicole. I literally thought of
so
Nicole
funny.
and like, oh my god, I literally was gonna send a screenshot of that,
Yeah.
and then I was like, eh.
Oh my
Tails
God.
are
It was hysterical.
Yeah, because I think like
So
they were
funny.
like, oh, let's try not to get a tail this time, and then one of them's like, but tails are hot, and they're like,
The
you're
tails are hot.
they're like, you're weird.
They're like, bunny.
They're like, Bunny,
Funny.
Okay.
no. We love
Bunny,
you, but
calm down.
no.
Like, don't kink shame me, okay? Jeez.
Literally. She's like, hey.
No, but literally my first thought was just Nicole when I read that, because I was like, oh, okay, I see. Self-insert of Nicole.
Oh my God. Tails are hot. I don't know that I would classify a bunny tail as particularly hot.
Yeah.
But you know.
Hey, a tail's
whatever.
a tail, don't be picky.
Usually, okay, listen. Usually, when a tail shows up, it's there for a reason. All right. I don't know what you're doing with a bunny tail.
Hey, it's soft, okay?
Right. I shouldn't kink shame.
It's really funny though because like the deer would have the same kind of
Yes.
tail too. So it's like they didn't even get the interesting tail animals.
Oh my God. It's so funny.
So
They
funny.
were, the tragic thing is like, the bunnies were really funny. They were kind of hysterical to me. I laughed my whole way through this book. I read a lot of it at work, like on my breaks, and I was just like the whole time over my desk, like, oh my God, what's happening? My coworker would come in, she really wants to borrow the book now, and I'm like, that's fine, but like it's all annotated to hell and back. I'm like, okay,
Uh-huh.
we're
That
gonna
makes
learn
it
a lot
better
about each
though.
other.
Right? Yeah. No, I was thinking about loaning my niece Tress because I have it annotated and I feel like she would
Mhm.
enjoy that.
Yeah.
I love annotated books. Annie gave me one of her favorites that she annotated, and I think that if I read the book without the annotations, I probably would have stopped. But like the annotations helped because the beginning's super slow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But like the rest of it was super good.
the beginning of that book, the first like, I don't know, half of it is
Is
so
super slow.
slow.
Mhm.
Because
But
it's
her
all the
annotations
world
helped me
building.
get through it.
Yeah. I did think this would be such an excellent book for anyone who wants to do like a traveling book club. This
Oh
is
yeah.
like such a
Mm.
good choice because there's so many things where you can be like, what is happening? Like, oh my God,
Like
girl,
what is
like,
going on?
oh my
Well,
God.
I mean,
Oh,
anybody who reads mine would be
very concerned.
yes. Like the first page, I have a note for "Why are you such a bitch?" that says, "Girl, just let them be happy."
Yeah, right. Oh my God. It's crazy.
There was what was I gonna say? Oh, it was really funny, all our spoilers in the chat though, because it started out like, oh, we hate Samantha, like she's annoying, like, well, normal
Yeah.
spoilers. And then all of a sudden we hit one point, which was that one party where the head exploded, and everything else past that was what is going on? What the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
What the
It was
fuck?
like we were like, okay, this is getting kind of weird. And then it was like, okay, what? And then it was,
What?
what is happening?
My favorite kind of book.
It
That
was
pipeline
just so funny to
perfect.
see everyone go through it though, because like I went through it, and then Annie went through it, and then Nicole, you were like, what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then
Like, what?
everyone else was, and then Abby was the last one, and we're like, you're here.
You're here.
Welcome,
Welcome.
Becky.
Welcome to the
Welcome.
chaos of this.
It
You
was
even
fantastic.
said like it's so fun watching Abby descend like
Uh-huh. Descend into the chaos.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's literally like the first part is kind of normal. It's like, okay, this, it's kind of a weird club, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Just
figured it would turn into like a Mean Girls vibe with like maybe her boyfriend, she'd get a boyfriend and he'd be like, we have to kill them, and then it would turn into a Heather's
oh, like
thing, right?
literally
Oh,
others.
yeah.
Mm.
Like,
You know what I really expected in the beginning when they introduced like Jonah and the lion? I
Mhm.
really thought, oh, we're going in a human sacrifice direction. Like, I was really
Yeah.
afraid. I was like, no, not Jonah. Like, I
I
really
thought it was
thought
gonna be
they-
like
yeah.
let's kill all these people who have hurt us kind of thing.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was like also one of the first things that I thought when Ava didn't reappear after the first bunny meeting is I was like, did they fucking sacrifice Ava? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot darker than it was actually,
yeah.
which
I find it really funny that during the meetings when they finally were showing her like the transformation like cult stuff, where like I forgot who it was that actually was in charge of the axe because it was like her house or whatever, and she was just so over it. She was like, do I have to do this
It's
again?
his turn.
I
Like,
think it was
don't
Creepy
do it.
Doll.
yeah,
I think so, yeah,
And
but it
she's
was just
just
so
like,
funny
I
how
can
over it they were. Like,
yeah,
not disturbed by it or anything. It was just
she's
so
like, can somebody else please do
blasé.
this? And then Vignette goes and tries to do it, and she comes back and she's like, I fucked up.
it was just so funny how over it she was. She was so desensitized to it, but she was like, I'm just done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't
Well,
I
and
also
like,
have to drive?
okay, I gotta go over.
More notes.
Hang on. Let me find it in the beginning of chapter 11. I think it was. Um, ah, like when they run upstairs and they're
There's a
like,
screaming.
it's so chaotic. And then they come back down. God, I thought I had like put a note in here, but I guess I just put it in the Discord. But it was like God, it was like Dracula with why can't I think of his name? Willy Wonka. Gene Wilder.
Wilder?
The Gene Wilder Dracula, where like all of the weird chaotic stuff is happening, but it's just so funny. Like it's supposed to be horror, but it's so chaotic that you're just cracking up laughing. Like that was 100% the vibe I got from that first chapter 11, that first scene where we descended into chaos.
It was so funny.
Right? Like
Also, the
they're all,
fact that
we'll
she
be right
like
back.
sexualized the one child. Was it Goldilocks? She or
Yeah.
something. She literally sexualized it. And I was like, okay, my childhood's ruined. Thanks for that. But it was just so random too. I was like, why?
Yeah, the sex obsessed, they're all sex obsessed, which is interesting because then they make such sexless, they really are truly so sexless, these bunnies, and the bunny boys, and they care only, just like tell me everything, and I'm just gonna like stroke your hair and I'll hunt for you, which was hysterical to me.
But their
Well,
goal
and
was this genitals, because like every time they go to do
Yeah,
it, they make a point of like, oh, let's try to get him a dick this time.
right.
but
But
it,
then
it
they're also
also
like
was
really
very
fine
much
with it.
like female incels,
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
like that's the vibe I got was like
what do you,
like
how so?
well, like they're so obsessed with sex that
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of clear that they haven't had sex.
At least
And then the fact that they make these sexless men because
They
maybe
don't
part
know.
of it is that they've never even seen a penis.
That's interesting. I took it more as like a just being very performative. Again, with the like comp het is a hell of a thing. Like just very
Yeah.
performative, only obsessed with each other and with the women in their lives. Even their,
Yeah.
advisor is a woman, but like the men are, who gives a shit? Like they don't care at all. It's not about them. They're not even like a person, totally dehumanized. So I took it more like that. Like they don't
Mm.
care about them at all. I mean, I definitely think Vignettes like out there, she was getting some for sure. But like
Oh, Vignette.
yeah, a Vignette. It's really interesting. Like, I wonder how their group started because it seems like they
Mhm.
were all kind of like individual people. And I got the impression that like Duchess sort of like formed this group.
Oh
But I
yeah.
would have been interested to know like how it came about. Like, did she have another group in like undergrad and then another group in high school? Like, what started this whole process where she has this like little cult and they like explode bunnies to make hybrids?
Right?
How do you even bring that up? Like, hey guys, I can do this thing with my mind.
With my
Yeah.
mind,
Come help.
I
I can
imagine
make
it's
these
like
bunnies
have this
explode.
fun green drink, and then we're just gonna like imagine the like perfect man.
But like also side note, how much of this whole situation was actually just one giant drug trip?
Oh, all of it. They're
Okay,
Right?
who wants to try the drinks though? Because they made them sound so delicious.
I know. I
Like the
really am
Samantha
like,
drink sounded delicious.
yeah.
And I
I
was
think we
like,
should have a
okay,
cocktail party.
Yeah.
I'm down.
that would
Yeah,
have been
let's do it.
perfect for this, and we could have just made our own for each other or whatever.
Yeah. So, okay, I had two things that I wanted to mention, and then we can wrap it up, I suppose. Or we could keep talking all day because I'm fine with that too. Um, they
I
talk
have
about
places to
like
be, unfortunately.
this is their project, right? This is they're like, oh,
Mhm.
we're working on our project. I'm like, what's the point? It's not a good project. Like,
No,
right?
like what
I don't
how
really get
are
the
you gonna
point
submit
of
that?
it. I
Are
think it
you
was
gonna submit that?
yeah. I guess I was trying to get they're like the work is the body and the body is the work. I suppose it was like from that sort of perspective, but I didn't know if anyone else like got it. I think part of the point is that it is bad, like it's not
Yeah.
good. But
Yeah.
I'm in a lot of my TikTok trying to figure out what the fuck did I just read. Everyone kind of pointed out, like, guys, this is satire. This is meant to be
yeah.
satire.
Yeah.
So that's probably part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where they were going with the whole like it being part of like the school stuff, or if it wasn't, I don't know, because it's like, do you just like bring the boy in?
Yeah.
Or
Right?
like
Like
Boy, with our
They bring the
brand.
rabbit, they do it in front of Fosco. She's like, wow.
it's like, oh my god, I love it.
amazing. I
You've
love it.
gone
Expose
deep.
her dog.
Oh God. That's truly the kind of direction I thought we were going in. Like not specifically that, but I was like, something real bad is gonna happen. And it
Yeah.
does, but not that way. So then the other thing was that I was looking up just kind of like what people were saying about it. And on one of the websites I saw soon to be a major motion picture.
Oh
So
yeah, I actually when I was googling the interview from earlier, it said like I just looked up like Monowad on Bunny, and then it said in like the like suggested it was book, and then underneath it was movie. And I was like, how? How?
But
so
we're gonna go see this together, right? Like, I mean,
absolutely.
we'll
Opening night,
find a way.
Thursday at midnight.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
we gotta.
I I was trying to think of who I would cast, but I don't have any suggestions for that. But I do think if I could have my dream director, it would be Emerald Fennell, who did Saltburn,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It has to be
Absolutely.
I
it
still
has to be
haven't
a
seen
woman.
Saltburn.
Saltburn is fantastic. I know it's crazy and out there, but like I
I
laughed
just
so hard.
You
You
gotta
liked
watch it.
this?
It's something you one of those movies where it's like you
Yeah,
just gotta watch it to watch it. Like
It's
okay.
say
honestly
that you
not as
watch it.
crazy as everyone says it was.
There's just a
I
couple scenes that are crazy.
Maybe
yeah.
I'll
Even
watch it
That's
then,
it.
tonight
those scenes
after
are
the kids
like,
go to bed.
I've read worse.
Were there any books that uh this reminded you of or anything like further reading recommendations?
No, the only thing this reminded me of, the beginning reminded me of like Heather's mixed with like maybe Mean Girls, and then it went off track and I could not think of anything.
Yeah,
Parts of it reminded me of The Magicians. The book is really different from the show.
Yeah.
I think it was just because the Magicians is like it's a magical school, but it's like college rather than high school. So they go and it has this kind of like MFA feeling, and like the projects that they're working on are like so intensely mathematic, and like the magic is all like math and it's like intense studying and that kind of thing. So there was a bit of that that kind of reminded me of it, like some of the vibes, but
I see that. Okay.
yeah, this feels really unique
Yeah.
Yeah.
otherwise.
Really, really
Yeah,
unique.
no, I don't know what to compare it to besides Heather's, but Heather's doesn't even fit the last half. Like
No.
it goes off the rails. The first half definitely. Like I can
I
get
mean,
that.
like, it does have kind of Frankenstein vibes,
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yep.
like
kind
campy
of,
Frankenstein vibes.
but I
Mhm.
don't know. It's very original and I don't think we'll read anything like it.
No.
But I rated this book 3 stars because the last half I couldn't understand it. I forced myself through it. The
Yeah.
first half I was so into, which probably was because of the audiobook style. Which I'm
Oh, yeah,
assuming
that's true.
because like you guys were all hating on Samantha and I didn't hate her. So I think it was like the inflection in the audiobook or the way it's told makes it so she's less hateable. I don't know.
That makes sense.
So I'm wondering if I read the entire thing audiobook style, how I would feel about it because I liked it when I was reading audiobook and then I started reading it like ebook wise and I didn't like it as much even though I wasn't that far.
That's
I
interesting.
don't know. But yeah, anyway, I rated it 3 stars. I just couldn't get into it and it was too much thinking to try
Yeah.
to analyze what was happening.
Fair enough. I gave it 5 stars. I just really liked it. I thought the voice was really interesting. The characters were
Mhm.
funny. I liked that it didn't quite do what I expected it to do.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, 5 stars. I really liked it. I highly recommended it too.
Yeah.
Who like these kinds of things. Something a
Mhm.
little weird and different.
I think I also rated it 3 stars just because I couldn't figure out if I loved it or hated it. And like for me, like I can't rate a book 5 stars if I like can't decide if I loved it or hated it. And so
Totally.
it's just kind of like
Yeah.
the 3.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
me,
that's kind of why it was 3 stars.
yeah, like I said earlier, I rated it 5 stars, and for me, that's because I cannot get this book out of my mind. Like, I will forever be analyzing the story. I don't I don't think I'll ever stop wondering what the hell just happened. And so like usually I'm really stingy with my 5 stars. I don't give 5 stars unless it's like a book that I know I'm going to read again or a book that I couldn't put down. With this one, it was like I will never stop thinking about this book. Like if I work on a book in the future that's anywhere similar to this book will be like on my mind the entire time. Like, what did it mean? But what did it mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
that's
no,
Yeah.
I
me.
totally get that. I probably would have been on that side because I couldn't stop thinking about it when I was reading it, but it was more of a what is happening? Like, I don't know. That's why I gave it 3 because it was in the middle of I didn't like it versus I liked it. Like the first half, if it stayed kind of that vibe without it going into complete chaos, it would have been probably 4 to 5 stars. Like the beginning half, I was into. I wanted to just keep listening to it. And then the last half, it was just so much what is happening, etc. And so that pushed it towards the bottom half of the ratings, which evens out to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. So okay then to wrap up, like what else have you guys been reading?
Well, we mentioned annotations, and I haven't started reading this yet, but I just wanted to show off Bree's work. She annotated Throne of Glass for me for my birthday.
Beautiful.
I've been reading Assassin's Blade. I'm about halfway through ish. But yeah, so Bree did this for me for my birthday. There's like a little bookmark in there too.
Mm.
So thanks,
That's
Bree.
sweet.
I'll get
Do you
there
like
eventually.
Assassin's Blade so far at least?
I do like it.
Good, 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 good.
I need to finish it the next couple days so my bullet journal doesn't get messed up, but it's so
But I'm just happy you like it because like a lot of people are like iffy about the beginning of Throne of Glass and then like anyway. But I'm hoping that reading Assassin's Blade first will help you get into it more. So I'm happy you like it and you're welcome for the book. I need to do Crescent City for someone now because that's the last Sarah J Maas series I gotta do. I
Um,
read The Reappearance of Rachel Price. It's by Holly Black. Yeah. Holly Jackson. Holly Jackson. Uh, I was mixing with the Cool Prince author. For some reason, I kept doing that. That one was amazing. If you read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and you liked it, you will like it. It's got the same vibes of wanting to know what happens next, and you think you know what's happening, and then you don't, and then you're wrong, and it makes sense why you're wrong. So it's so good as a standalone, so you don't have to read all of her other books to get it. But it's the same kind of vibe as that, and it's true crime. It's about this girl whose mom went missing and just vanished, and then she like reappears, and they're like, "What is happening? Like, what? Where were you? Why did you just randomly reappear?" And all this stuff. And there's a twist at the end that makes sense, and it blew my mind because I was like, "Oh my god, wait, hold on, what?" But it made sense throughout the book, and it wasn't just like one of those twists like, that makes no sense. You just put that in there. So, highly recommend it. It was 5 stars, and I could not stop thinking about it. I read it in 2 days.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
What about you, Annabelle?
So for the most part, I just read Bunny this month. That kind of I've been crocheting a lot and baking sourdough. Um,
Yum.
I am currently reading what is it? Blood and Honey, I think, which
Mm.
is the second book of the Serpent and Dove series. I'm not very far into it. I only started a couple days ago and I haven't had a lot of time. But in the interim, I also read Galatea by Madeline Miller,
Okay.
the same author of the Song of Achilles. I'm sorry, the book's right here, so I'm like looking up at it.
Yeah.
Um, it was really good. It's a short story, so it's like,
Okay.
yeah, it was really interesting.
That is
An
interesting.
interesting read. And then I read the second book of The Girl from the Other Side. It's a manga,
Mm.
which is really cute. It's like, a big scary monster basically adopts this little girl.
Adorable.
Love it.
Always love that.
Yeah, it's so cute.
I read this book called The Tusks of Extinction by Ray Naylor. I actually have the physical book, but I immediately lent it to someone. But the cover looks like this.
That's crazy looking.
It's beautiful. So it's a short novel. It's only like 100 pages. And it's basically like set kind of sort of in the future, and scientists have um brought woolly mammoths back from extinction, but someone has to teach them how to survive. And so what they do is they put the consciousness of the last expert on elephants into like the matriarch's brain. So it's like a human consciousness, and she has to like teach them how to be a woolly mammoth and how to survive, which sounds dorky, but it's so not. It's beautifully written because it follows the matriarch, and then like the person running the preserve, and then a poacher. Um and it takes place in a world where like elephants don't exist in the wild anymore. They've been poached to extinction. Like elephants are extinct. That's why they have to do this, is because they can't just like give the baby woolly mammoths to an elephant that would teach them, because that's how they normally do it, right? With these kinds of things. Like
Yeah.
they'll teach them how to do it. Well, there's nothing, so they were just dying. So they take her
Mhm.
consciousness and they put it into a woolly mammoth. Um it was really beautifully written. Like it's another one like I'm gonna think about this for forever. So
Yeah.
highly recommend. It was great.
The different side of your shifter stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like a different kind of thing.
It's a non-romantic shifter.
I have layers, okay?
Like an onion.
That's right.
Or a parfait. Everybody loves parfaits.
Ogres are like
Absolutely.
onions.
A trifle, so many layers.
I need to watch Shrek again. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's so funny. Okay, yeah, well, I guess that's been our podcast meeting, our book club podcast. Unless anybody has anything else to. Yes, next month is What the River Knows. So read it
By
all.
By
Isabel.
Isabel Ibanez.
Ibanez. There we
There
go.
you go.
Okay.
I
Like-
wasn't even gonna try. I know
I
Nice.
practiced it
before.
before. I was like, Ibanez.
Okay,
Ibanez.
perfect. Yeah, so join us for that and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.